those stories true?
They take everything to the extreme. When you have a star such as they make it much bigger than what it is. As far as all of that, I don't see anything wrong with anything that he's done. It's not strange at all.
Oprah Winfrey landed the first live televised talk with the King of Pop in 14 years. Her interview with the pop star gave Oprah her finest ratings ever, but she asked the vulnerable star unthinkable and intrusive questions. To be fair, they were questions everyone was asking. Whether Michael was a homosexual or a virgin? Did Jackson want to become white?
Because you don't like being black. And number one, there, as I know,
Did he buy the Elephant Man's remains? Was his best friend a monkey? Was that monkey telepathic? Was he married to Elizabeth Taylor? Did he suffer from anorexia? And when Michael responded, she challenged his answers almost like she was setting him up. 6 months and 14 days later, the first accusations of sexual abuse were made public, and his image was tarnished forever. This led to accusations by Janet and other members of the Jackson family that Oprah had betrayed Michael and the family.
Do you think Oprah betrayed Michael?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And I feel like she betrayed not just him, but my family. After he passed, she asked to do an interview with my cousins, Paris, Prince, and Blanket. So my grandmother invited Oprah over to Havenhurst, to my grandmother's house, and they had a sit down. My grandmother otherwise would not have allowed Paris, Prince, and Blanket to do an interview, but because Oprah was being so sincere, she allowed it. And so I feel like we've let her in so many times.
At first, Oprah tried connecting with the artist by asking Michael if he was nervous. When he answered no, she commented that she wouldn't be either. She began by asking softball questions. They talked about Jackie Wilson, James Brown, the Bee Gees, and Motown. 8 minutes into the show, Oprah posed the question that would allow her to get to the meatier questions. Were you as happy off stage as you were on stage? After addressing how Michael felt going from an adorable child prodigy to a teenager.
I want to look in the mirror. Really? And my father teased me, and I just hated it. I cried every day.
Did he ever beat you?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
And that was?
Strict disciplinarian or whatever, but he was very strict, very hard, very stern. And just a look would scare. There's been times when he'd come to see me and I would get sick.
Really?
I'd start to regurgitate.
As a child or as an adult?
Both.
She asked if he bought the Elephant Man's remains, and if it is true that he wanted a white actor to play Michael Jackson as a child in a Pepsi commercial. Winfrey went through a litany of crazy headlines, all of which Jackson denied. At minute 24, Oprah posed the question that everyone was asking themselves in 1993.
Is your skin lighter because you don't like being black?
Here, for the first time in public, Michael mentioned that he suffered from vitiligo, an autoimmune disease that destroys pigment-producing cells. He defended himself somewhat crazily, but it did make some sense.
What about all the millions of people who sit out in the sun to become darker, to become other than what they are? Nobody says nothing about that.
His physical appearance remained the focus of the conversation. Oprah asked how many plastic surgery procedures he had undergone, to which Jackson replied, "Very, very few," saying you can count them on 2 fingers. It doesn't take a surgeon to know that Michael was lying. He maintained that falsehood in 2003 in his interview with Martin Bashir, when he responded sarcastically to the same question when he said he had 2 operations that he can remember. However, Oprah is the queen of this format, and her 2021 conversation with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is the most recent great example of the show interview. These questions angered many of the fans of the superstar who felt that Oprah was biased, disrespectful, and insensitive. They accused her of exploiting Jackson's vulnerability and trying to tarnish his reputation. They also blamed her for paving the way for the allegations of sexual abuse that emerged later in the decade. Some fans even boycotted her show and called for her to apologize to Jackson. A few months later, in the summer of 1993, the first accusations of sexual abuse were made public. In August 1993, accusations arose that Jackson had molested then 13-year-old Jordan Chandler. Jackson settled the lawsuit while denying any wrongful acts. However, this led the public to believe he was guilty and had only done it to shut up the victim. Nonetheless, Janet was there to support her brother, and she noted that although her brother made a monetary settlement with the victim's family, it wasn't an admission of guilt.
But according to Janet, Michael was trying to say,
Look, leave me alone. I'm sick of your crap. You're after money. You've said it here. Get out of my life. Now, if this really went on, do you think a father would accept money? That would make it okay? That would make everything all right?
After pleading not guilty, he was acquitted of all charges in 2005. More than 35 years later, Oprah Winfrey decided to stand by the two men who are accusing the late Michael of sexual abuse in the documentary Leaving Neverland.
Transcends Michael Jackson. It is much bigger than any one person. This is a moment in time that allows us to see this societal corruption. It's like a scourge on humanity. And it's happening right now. It's happening in families. We know it's happening in churches.
Claiming that Jackson abused him for nearly a decade, but the suit was dismissed by a judge in 2017. The documentary garnered significant buzz upon its premiere at the Sundance Film Festival and was to be broadcast on HBO in 2 parts. The Jackson family, however, denounced the film and Robson and Safechuck's claims. The King of Pop's estate filed a $100 million lawsuit against HBO over its planned broadcast of the documentary, alleging it violates a non-disparagement clause from a 1992 contract. The Michael Jackson estate said, "This is yet another lurid production in an outrageous and pathetic attempt to exploit and cash in on Michael Jackson." Wade Robson and James Safechuck have both testified under oath that Michael never did anything inappropriate toward them. Safechuck and Robson, the latter, a self-proclaimed master of deception, filed lawsuits against Michael's estate, asking for millions of dollars. Both lawsuits were dismissed. Still, Winfrey said she was aware that her support of the documentary might be polarizing, possibly inciting anger from Jackson's fans and estate. Winfrey detailed how it can be so hard for people who have not experienced this type of trauma to understand why the two accusers would have wanted to continue being around Jackson if he was abusing them. Janet, herself a victim of childhood sexual abuse, remained tight-lipped in the wake of the documentary. She and the rest of the family thought putting more energy into it would add more eyeballs to it. So Janet didn't want to make it bigger. However, in a documentary she released in 2022, a 4-part Lifetime and A&E docuseries, Janet Jackson defended Michael Jackson. She opened up about how the child sexual abuse allegations affected her life and career, saying in the docuseries that she lost out on an endorsement deal with the Coca-Cola Company after the allegations emerged.
Guilty by association. Guess that's what they...
Many considered it a promotional ploy by the two, rather than a real interview. Jackson's album Dangerous, which had been falling down the charts in the 2 years after its release, became a top 10 bestseller again. The interview gathered around 62 million viewers in the United States, and 90 million viewers worldwide watched the interview live, although some estimates claim it was higher at 100 million. If one didn't see the interview, there was nothing to talk about the next day. Michael Jackson's next 2 major interviews with Diane Sawyer in 1995 and with Martin Bashir in 2003 would have even more disturbing questions. Have you ever had suicidal tendencies? What's a 36-year-old man doing sleeping with a 12-year-old boy? Have you ever had sexual intercourse with a child? The rest of the story is familiar. Bashir's 2003 interview, in which Jackson again claimed to share his bed with children, prompted an investigation and then a trial for the sexual abuse of a young boy who appeared with him on the show. Do you think Oprah is to be blamed for the allegations against Jackson? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.